So, detail of what he looked like. And his birth date, that's more or less the same photo, I think, that appears in the picture. Now, you would think, judging by some of his later pictures, that he had a tormented, traumatic childhood with an overbearing father, and that's probably not true. Quick note about geography. He's from Catalonia, that's way up there in the upper right corner of Spain, near the French border. That's a region that has its own language. You can see in detail. Figueres, that's where Dali was born, so quite a bit north of Barcelona, literally about a 20-minute drive from the French border. So also a French-speaking area. And Dali was quite multilingual, quite well-educated, went to various good schools. When he went off to the art school in Madrid, his father made sure he got a good place. His father was a notary. Here are the parents. His father was a prestigious notary in Figueres, which was sort of the equivalent of being a lawyer. The notary in countries like Spain and France is really the person who draws up the contractual agreements for all sorts of different forms of business, whether it's the sale of a property or whatever, but it's different than the way we use the term notary here. So he was a prosperous, high middle class, professional class person in a small provincial city, and therefore quite prestigious. He was also a fairly modern man who was basically secular and sympathetic with the idea of Catalanism and sort of asserting its political regional identity, and also more generally republicanism. So he wasn't really a completely old-fashioned man. Dali's mother, on the other hand, was more traditional and was more of a practicing Catholic. That sort of situation with one parent being more religious than the other. Usually the woman in this period in Europe was not the Dal unto. Now, here they are in Cadicas, which is close to Figueres on the coast, and they bought a house there to spend some of the summers. They went in the summer of 1910, and they were great friends of the Pichot family, who also had a house there and and were close friends of Picasso's. So even though Dali's only like 6 years old in the photograph, this very same summer Picasso was summering in Cadicas as well. Whether they met or not is unclear. Shortly before Dali was born, his parents had another child who died, who was also called Salvador. This incident seems to have marked Dali's life. At least it's another one of the myths he constructs around his sort of sense of self-identity and mythologies of self-identity. Of course, psychologists have all sorts of theories about replacement children and so on. But Dali was able to spin this sort of ambiguity of the twin dead brother into a kind of ongoing explanation for his own sort of creative identity, even many, many years later on. Here he is at age 6, with a later statement reflecting back on his youth, about how his ambitions have been growing ever since. So I think we can see that he was a confident little child rather than a traumatized one, and most likely grew up in a very, very happy situation of privilege, good schools, nice second summer homes, and so on. Of course, later he wanted to suppress all this because the father had to be this overbearing, kind of castrating figure, and everything had to be inscribed within the trauma of the Freudian Oedipal complex.